My name is Chloe Min Tran, and I'm 39 years old. If you'd walked into our kitchen the day I stopped pretending not to notice, you would have seen a scene that sells the lie of normal. Coffee steaming in a navy mug, sunlight chipping its way through the blinds, a grocery list written with the tidy optimism of people who believe the weak will obey. Liam's jacket hung over the back of a chair like it lived there. The ring box, matte black, heavy for its size, sat on the counter where we'd left it after one of those late-night "how did we get so lucky" conversations. He came out of the bedroom smelling like cedar and a new start, the kind of cologne that has a story printed on the box. He kissed my temple, quick, the way you tap save on a file you barely edited. "Big day?" I asked, rinsing blueberries. I didn't look at his hands yet. It felt like cheating at a game we weren't admitting we were playing. Client breakfast, then the Thursday happy hour. He said it like tradition. Maybe that's what it had become. Rituals we didn't question because they kept the story moving. I waited until he reached for his keys to turn. I let my eyes fall where they'd been, wanting to go for weeks. Bare left hand. Warm skin. No band. The men's engagement band I'd spent 2 years saving toward, $18,500, in brushed platinum with a bevel he'd picked out, wasn't on his finger. "Where's your ring?" I asked, and I hated how casual I tried to sound, like I'd misplaced a coaster. He didn't flinch. That was somehow worse. His gaze flicked to his hand, then back to my face. "I don't wear it to work." "Since when?" "Since always, Chloe." He reached for the navy mug, took a sip, didn't meet my eyes. We'd been engaged for 7 months. Always was doing a lot of work in that sentence. I could hear the hollow inside the word. You learn to recognize an empty when you've built your life around keeping the pantry, literal and emotional, stocked. "Does it get in the way of typing or something?" I try to smile. "Is it catching on spreadsheets?" "It's not professional," he said, lifting one shoulder in a shrug that pretended to be reasonable. "And I don't owe anyone my relationship status. It's easier to keep things strictly business." The edge on the word "oh" found a nerve I didn't know was exposed. Still, I nodded. Reasonable people nod. In meetings. In kitchens. "Okay," I said, "I wish you'd mentioned it. Do I need to report every piece of jewelry I decide not to wear?" He rinsed his cup and set it upside down like a period at the end of a sentence he wanted to end. I let it end. I told myself I was being mature, not insecure. That's the thing about doubt. It borrows your best virtues, puts on your voice, and walks around like it owns the place. At lunch 2 weeks later, I took a ride share across town with his favorite banh mi in a paper bag and the hope that surprises fix small, stupid things. The hostess at his building smiled like I'd told a cute secret. Liam's floor smelled like toner and ambition. He looked rare, crisp shirt, sleeves sharp enough to slice. And again, the clean, undressed hand. "Where's your ring?" I asked, placing the sandwich on his desk because hands want to do something while hearts wait. "I told you," he said, too fast. "I don't wear it at work." He unwrapped the sandwich like we were switching topics. We weren't. He just refused to speak the one we were already in. That afternoon, I tried to file the feeling under overreaction. That night, I tried again. He slid the band on before he walked through our door, as if the hallway demanded vows and his office demanded options. He kissed my cheek, tasted like cilantro and a line I couldn't see but could feel. "How was your day?" he asked, and we did the dance of decent people who keep their promises by not asking questions they're not ready to hear the answers to. The thing about suspicion is it never travels alone. It brings cousins, confirmation bias, late-night scrolling, the itch in your spine that says check again. I didn't check his phone. Not then. I checked Instagram. Keith. No, not Keith. That was someone else's story. In our story, it was Elisa, the colleague I'd met at their holiday party. A too bright smile, a laugh that lasted a beat longer than the joke. She posted a carousel from Thursday drinks. The team in a booth, neon humming like an alibi. Liam sat center left, the position of a man who's been told he photographs well. The caption read, "Thursday with the crew. Office's favorite single guy showing us how it's done. #work family, #thirsty, Thursday, #single life." I stared at those 2 words, single guy, until the rest of the caption blurred. Then I zoomed like evidence needed permission to exist. His left hand rested on the table. No band. The band was in the ceramic dish by our door that night when he came home, back on his finger before his key hit the lock. I didn't show him the post. I said nothing. Another thing about doubt. When you don't feed it with confrontation, it goes hunting for proof. The next morning, I watched from the hallway mirror how he slid the ring off right before he left, quick and practiced, dropping it into the small pocket of his work bag. Not the jewelry box, not the dish we bought at the Sunday market. The bag. Portable choices. "Have a good day," he said, and the door shut like a scene change. I called Eric, an old client turned friend who knew Liam's industry and its myths. "Be straight with me," I said, giving him the context without names. "Do guys really take off engagement rings for professionalism in 2025? Eric didn't even pretend to consider it. Not unless they're auditioning for Available. Married, engaged, men wear bands. It's not Mad Men. If he's hiding it, he's hiding something. The practical part of me, the woman who balances forecasts and feelings, hated the simplicity of that. But sometimes a clean answer is a life preserver, not a weapon. That night, while Liam showered, I opened his work bag. Not his phone, not his laptop, his bag. The ring wasn't there. It was back on his finger before he stepped out in a towel, steam trailing him like a magician's reveal. "Movie or bed?" he asked. I chose bed. Silence is easier to carry lying down. 2 days of watching. 2 days of him as perfect as the packaging. He wasn't cruel. He didn't pick fights. He just performed good fiancé in our apartment and favorite single guy in captions that were meant to be cute and were, in fact, confessions. I set my alarm for an hour earlier than usual on the third day, not because I planned to do anything dramatic, but because I needed enough morning to decide what kind of woman I was going to be when the deciding was over. I brewed coffee. I looked at the ring box. Heavy, honest. I thought about the night I'd asked him to try it on. The way his eyes had gone glassy at the bevel he'd chosen, the way he'd said, "No one's ever chosen me like this." I had believed him because it had been my favorite story to believe. Stories change, or maybe they end and we refuse to read the last line. When he left, I did not follow him. I followed the feeling. The one that said, "Watch, verify, remember who you are." I stood at the window as he crossed the street, his left hand swinging, ringless, easy. In his reflection on the lobby glass, he looked like a man who belonged to everyone but me. I didn't cry, not because I'm strong, but because grief has terrible timing, and mine, apparently, respects office hours. By noon, I had the plan's first sentence written in my head. Do not confront, document. The rest, how it would all blow up, was still a blank page. But blanks don't stay blank when you start telling the truth. They fill themselves in. And I was done pretending that empty didn't mean something. There's a particular kind of silence that follows suspicion, the kind that hums. It sits between your ribs and waits for evidence. 3 days after the single guy post, I stopped sleeping properly. Not out of heartbreak, out of calculation. That Friday, Liam texted he'd be home late. "Client dinner," he wrote. No emojis, no details. The man loved details. I'd once teased him for writing grocery lists like business proposals. Bananas organic 6 units. At 9:43 p.m., I watched his Instagram story from a burner account I'd made in college and forgotten until that week. There it was, a boomerang of a martini glass clinking another. The other belonged to Melissa, his ex-girlfriend, the one he swore had moved to Austin ages ago. The caption read, "Old friends, new wins." My heart didn't break. It rearranged itself around the truth. When he got home, he smelled like gin and someone else's perfume. Expensive, floral, not mine. "Dinner go long?" I asked, closing my laptop. "Yeah, client from Singapore. Time zones, you know?" "Right," I said, looking at the clock. "Singapore, Texas, what's the difference?" He laughed, but it sounded borrowed. That night, he fell asleep first. I lay there, counting the seconds between his breaths, until my own anger felt methodical enough to stand. I've never been the kind of woman who checks phones. I believe in trust like I believe in encryption. Once you start breaking it, you can't pretend it's intact. But that night, I became a hypocrite with purpose. His passcode hadn't changed. Maybe he thought I'd never use it. Maybe he wanted to get caught. First stop, messages. Harmless at first. Memes, work banter, logistical texts. Then a thread named M. I scrolled. Melissa. "Still can't believe you're engaged. She must be perfect." Liam. "You know how image matters in my field." Melissa. "So the ring is part of the image?" Liam. "More like the costume." I stopped reading there. My hands were shaking too much. I checked Instagram, not his public one, the one linked to his old Gmail. The profile picture was a mirror selfie. Bio: adventurer, consultant, single and free. Recent post: a rooftop bar, captioned, "The city looks better when you're not explaining yourself." Melissa's like sat at the top, faithful as a signature. And then there was Tinder, logged in, active within the week. I stared at his profile picture, half expecting it to morph into someone else. Looking for something real, it said. The irony tasted metallic. I didn't confront him, not yet. I took screenshots, dates, times, captions, emailed them to myself with a subject line I could never mistake for spam: evidence, trust breach. He stirred in bed around 2 a.m., mumbled my name, reached for me. I stayed still. Sometimes love sounds like static, and all you can do is not move until it stops. The next morning, I made pancakes. Normalcy as armor. He came out whistling, shirt untucked, careless. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," I said. "Wanted to surprise you." He kissed my cheek. "You're the best." The syrup dripped in slow, amber threads. I watched it slide down like time itself, thick, irreversible. He checked his phone mid-bite, typed something quick, smiled at a notification. I poured coffee into his favorite mug, the one that said, "Do the work," and wondered if irony has a scent. That afternoon, I called Maya, my oldest friend. She works in compliance, someone who understands the value of proof. I told her the surface story. "If you suspected your fiancé was lying about something small, would you ask or verify first?" "Verify," she said without hesitation. "Then document. Then act like you already know until you're ready to show your cards." Her advice slid into me like a commandment. I spent the weekend acting like someone who didn't know. It was almost easy. We went grocery shopping, watched a movie, folded laundry. He laughed at something on his phone, and I laughed too, though I had no idea what was funny. Sunday night, he said, "We should look at honeymoon spots soon." I said, "Sure," but in my head, I was already packing for something else entirely. On Monday, he left for work early. I waited exactly 3 minutes, then checked his bag. The ring was there, tucked neatly in a side pocket, zipped shut like a secret. I slipped it out, held it under the kitchen light. Platinum, engraved inside. Forever starts now. How fragile that word looked. Forever. I took a photo of the engraving. Then I placed the ring back exactly as it was. That evening, when he got home, he said, "You're quiet tonight." I looked up from my wine. "Just tired." He reached for my hand. "You know I love you, right?" I almost laughed. "Of course," I said. "You tell me all the time." And that was true. He did. But love without evidence feels like a password someone else set and forgot to share. The next 2 days were a waiting game. I started noticing his rhythms. How he showered longer when he was texting Melissa, how he smiled at his phone like it was a mirror. Once, his reflection caught mine in the bathroom glass, and I swear I saw guilt flicker. Just once, like a bad light bulb. That's when I knew I wasn't imagining any of it. When Wednesday came, I woke up different. There's a kind of exhaustion that isn't about sleep, it's about belief. I didn't have the energy to argue with lies anymore. So I started planning my exit like I was writing code. Step by step, quiet, precise, irreversible. Step 1, gather every legal document with my name. Step 2, secure personal savings. Step 3, close the joint wedding fund he thought he had partial control over. He didn't know it yet, but he'd already written his own ending. That night, he wrapped an arm around me in bed. "You're my peace, Chloe," he murmured. I stared at the ceiling, tracing the tiny cracks that caught the moonlight. If peace was what he wanted, he was about to get all the silence in the world. When people say revenge, they picture fire, explosions, screaming matches, and broken glass. But the truth, revenge is quiet. It hums at the same frequency as grief, low, constant, deliberate. That Thursday, Liam left for work like every other day, his ring tucked neatly in his bag, his kiss routine, his confidence intact. And me? I sat at the kitchen counter, staring at the ceramic dish where the ring belonged. The house felt like a stage after closing night, everything still in its place, but the meaning gone. I checked my to-do list again, as if reading steps in a recipe. Pack essentials. Call the bank. Don't look back. I moved like a ghost through our apartment, careful not to disturb the props. his mug in the sink, his shoes by the door, the framed photo from our engagement shoot in Sedona. The one where I'd laughed so hard the photographer said, "That's it. That's real love." Maybe it had been. Or maybe I'd just been laughing at how perfect lies can look in golden light. I filled one suitcase. Documents, laptop, clothes I actually liked, left the rest. I didn't want to drag his version of me anywhere new. At the bank, the air smelled like paper and lemon sanitizer. "Morning," I said, sliding my ID across the counter. "I'd like to close an account." The teller, a young man with polite eyes, typed something, then looked up. "The joint wedding fund?" "Not joint," I corrected softly. "Beneficiary access only." He nodded. "Balance is $42,260. Transfer everything to my personal account," I said. "And please, confirm once it's irreversible." When the confirmation pinged, it sounded like a door clicking shut. I'd save that money for the venue, the honeymoon, the kind of wedding you only plan when you think you've already survived everything that could hurt you. Now it was my insurance policy against the next kind of pain, starting over. At 2:17 p.m., the first text came through. Liam. "Chloe, what the hell did you do? The venue called, said our payment bounced." Liam. "Bank says the account's closed. Call me now." I didn't reply. By 4, 10 more messages. Liam. "Is this some kind of test?" Liam. "If you're mad about the ring thing, can we talk like adults?" Liam. "Please, don't make this a bigger deal than it is." I turned off notifications and kept driving. Maya's lake house was 2 hours north, tucked between pines and clean air. I pulled in just as the sky started to pinken. The water was still, mirror flat, like it was holding its breath for me. Inside, I dropped my bag by the couch and opened my laptop. I forwarded the folder of screenshots to my lawyer's email. Subject line, documentation, personal protection inquiry. Then I sat there, waiting for the adrenaline to wear off. It didn't. By 6 p.m., his tone shifted. Liam. "Chloe, please pick up. I'm scared. I don't understand what's happening." Liam. "Whatever you think you found, it's not what it looks like." Liam. "I love you. Please don't do this." The irony of "please don't do this" hit me like cold air. This, all of it, was something he'd already done. I was just finishing the paperwork. I didn't respond. He called 33 times that night. I watched the screen light up each time, his contact photo smiling in a tuxedo that suddenly looked like costume design. The next morning, he must have realized I wasn't coming back. Liam. "You moved out? Without even talking to me? Are you insane?" Liam. 3 years, Chloe. You don't throw that away over one misunderstanding. Liam. "Please, just tell me what you think you know." My finger hovered over reply. For half a second, I wanted to. Then I remembered the messages. The ring's just a costume. No, I thought, he doesn't deserve context, only consequences. That afternoon, Maya came home from work with groceries and 2 bottles of wine. "So," she said, kicking off her shoes, "did you actually do it?" "I did." Her eyes widened. "You closed the account?" "Every cent." She let out a low whistle. That's the kind of move that writes its own legend. I smiled weakly. "It's not revenge, it's clarity." "Same outcome," she said, handing me a glass. "Different branding." By the second evening, the text turned desperate. Liam. "Please, I can't pay the deposits. My card's maxed." Liam. "The team's asking questions. Someone showed HR screenshots. Was that you?" Liam. "I swear, Melissa meant nothing. It was just flirting. She started it." I closed my eyes, let the phone buzz until it stopped. What he didn't know was that I hadn't sent anything to HR. Melissa had. In her panic, trying to save herself, she'd thrown him under the bus. A friend from his office DM'd me that night. "You didn't hear it from me, but Liam and Melissa got called into HR today. Someone leaked their texts. He's suspended pending investigation." I stared at the message for a long time. I didn't feel triumphant, just still. Actions, consequences, gravity. The next morning, a new message appeared. Liam. "My parents know. What did you tell them?" I hadn't told them anything. But of course, Melissa had called them crying, and they'd called me out of sheer panic. His father's voice was low and resigned. "We saw the messages, Chloe. I'm so sorry." I expected anger. Instead, there was shame. "He's always thought he could charm his way out of anything," his father said quietly. "Maybe this time he can't." I thanked him for calling, and after we hung up, I sat there for a long time, listening to the lake hit the dock. The sound was rhythmic, cleansing, almost forgiving. That night, I opened the photo folder again. The ring, the messages, the screenshots. I selected 4 and sent them to Liam with no caption. The group photo, office's favorite single guy. His Tinder profile, looking for something real. His chat with Melissa. The ring's just a costume. The ring box, empty, shot in the afternoon sun. No words, just truth. His response was instant. Liam, oh God, Chloe, please, let me explain. Liam, you don't understand. It wasn't like that. Liam, you're ruining my life. And then almost an hour later, Liam, I'm sorry, I messed up. Please come home. I stared at the last line for a long time. Then I powered off my phone. The lake house had no city noise, just frogs and crickets, and the sound of my own pulse finally slowing down. That's when it hit me. The truth wasn't heavy anymore. It had weight, yes, but not the kind that drags you down, the kind that keeps you from floating away. He'd chosen his version of freedom. I was choosing mine. In the morning, I'd start the paperwork to make it official. No screaming, no spectacle, just a clean break from the costume he'd mistaken for love. Because sometimes walking away is the explosion. And silence, the sound that follows, is the part that burns longest. It's strange how quickly chaos learns your name once you stop answering its calls. By the time I powered my phone back on, that Monday morning, there were 42 missed calls, 19 voicemails, and a string of texts that read like a weather forecast. Rage, confusion, guilt, denial, repeat. Then came the storm that didn't come from him. The first number was HR, then a local unknown number, his mother. Then Melissa, whose name flashed like static before I blocked it. I hadn't exposed anyone. I hadn't needed to. The truth had its own timeline, and it was finally catching up. At 10:11 a.m., my phone buzzed again. This time it was Liam's father. I hesitated before answering, but curiosity won over dread. His tone was heavy, deliberate. Chloe, I want you to know, you don't owe us an explanation. I just want to say I'm sorry. For what? I asked carefully. For raising a man who thought honesty was optional. That silence afterward was longer than I expected. He exhaled. He's not taking this well. They suspended him today. HR had screenshots of his messages with that woman. Melissa, I think? I closed my eyes. I didn't send them. I know. Melissa panicked. Tried to make herself look like the victim. But she confessed more than she realized. He sighed. His mother's been crying all morning. She keeps asking where she went wrong. I don't think this is about parenting, I said softly. Some lessons people refuse to learn until they lose something that mattered. Maybe so, he said, but you didn't deserve this, Chloe. That sentence landed heavier than any accusation. I thanked him, then hung up and sat staring at my reflection in the lake window. Pale, unblinking, almost foreign. By sunset, the fallout had spread. A mutual friend, Tasha, texted from the city. Girl, you didn't hear it from me, but Liam's department is imploding. HR found out he'd been flirting with clients under his personal email. Melissa threw him under the bus to save herself. He's on unpaid leave. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt still, like watching a building burn that you'd already evacuated. That night, I drafted one email. Subject line, separation of assets. In 3 paragraphs, I detailed every shared payment, every receipt, every item that was mine before him. No insults, no emotion, just clarity. I CC'd my lawyer and hit send. 2 days later, Maya and I were sitting on the porch, drinking cheap wine from chipped mugs, when a car pulled up the gravel road. My phone vibrated before I even saw him. Liam, please come outside, I just want to talk. Through the screen door, I saw him, standing by the hood of his car, the same one we'd driven to Sedona for our engagement shoot. He looked smaller now, the kind of small that comes from being caught in your own reflection too long. Maya muttered, "Want me to call the cops?" "No," I said, stepping outside. "Let's finish it." He didn't look angry anymore, just wrecked. "Chloe," he started, voice frayed. "I didn't cheat. Not really. I mean, yes, I flirted, but it wasn't—" "Stop," I raised a hand. "Every liar starts with, it wasn't what it looked like. The problem is, Liam, it always is." His eyes glistened, but I didn't mistake that for remorse. It was panic. Things got confusing. You were so perfect, and I started wondering if I could live up to you. That's not confusion, that's cowardice. He took a step closer. Please, I lost my job. Melissa's gone. My parents won't even talk to me. I almost pitied him, almost. Actions have consequences, I said quietly. And so does silence. I spent months giving you the benefit of the doubt. You spent those same months giving someone else your attention. He shook his head, desperate. You can't just erase me like this. I looked him straight in the eye. I already did. For the first time, he had nothing to say. No spin, no charm, just a long exhale that sounded like surrender. He got back in his car without another word. The taillights disappeared into the trees, leaving the sound of crickets and my own heartbeat. That night, my inbox pinged. Subject, apology. Chloe, I know I can't fix this. I know you probably hate me. I don't even recognize myself anymore. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know I never meant to hurt you. I thought I could control the damage. I was wrong. I read it twice, then archived it. Not delete, not reply, just file away like an old bill paid in full. 3 weeks later, I returned to the city. The apartment was almost unrecognizable. He'd moved out, taken his things. The walls looked cleaner without his framed motivational quotes. On the counter, I found the ring box. Empty. He must have left it on purpose. I slipped it open, traced the velvet, and smiled. Not because it was funny, but because it was over. When I closed the lease in my name alone, the woman at the office said, "Starting fresh, huh?" I nodded. More like starting honest. The next day, I sold the ring. Took a 30% loss, but I didn't care. The buyer asked if it was a breakup. Something like that, I said. Call it a return to inventory. I used part of the money to book a solo trip to Montana, the one I'd always postponed because Liam wasn't the camping type. The rest I donated to a women's legal aid fund. Closure has better uses when it helps someone else get free. On my last night before the trip, I got a message from an unknown number. "He's out of the company. Melissa's gone too. HR cited breach of ethics. Thought you'd want to know." No name attached. Just proof that the story had finished writing itself. I went to bed with the window open. The city hum sounded less like noise and more like a pulse I could finally live with again. Sometimes people tell you closure comes from understanding. They're wrong. It comes from no longer needing to. 3 months. That's how long it took for everything to stop vibrating. At first, I still reached for my phone when I heard a notification, expecting another text, another plea, another excuse. Now the silence is ordinary, peaceful even. I moved into a new apartment downtown, small, bright, and entirely mine. The kind of place where you can hear your own footsteps and know they belong only to you. No his and hers towels, no ghost of promises hanging in closets. Just one set of keys, one toothbrush, one life rebuilt from the ground up. Every morning, I open the blinds and let the light spill in, the way my mother used to say, "Let the light in so shadows have nowhere to hide." I think I finally understand what she meant. My lawyer finalized the separation paperwork in early May. It was almost anticlimactic. Just signatures, dates, and an electronic stamp that said complete. No yelling, no courtroom scene, no dramatic music. Just quiet legality. Maya called it poetic justice. "You closed a chapter with a keystroke," she said. "That's power." But I don't think it's power, it's peace. The kind you can't buy, only earn by walking away from the noise. The news about Liam spread faster than I expected. A mutual friend texted me one morning. "He's working at a smaller firm now. Reputation's shot. Melissa's gone. She left town." I didn't reply. I didn't smile either. Some stories don't need commentary. They just need distance. The ring money helped fund 2 things, a solo trip to Montana and a photography course I'd always wanted to take. I remember standing by the river in Bozeman, camera in hand, waiting for light. The air was cold enough to sting, the kind that makes your lungs feel clean again. A man nearby, another photographer, looked over and said, "You waiting for the perfect shot?" I smiled. "No, I'm learning that sometimes the moment doesn't need to be perfect to be worth remembering." He nodded like he understood. Maybe he did. When I got back to the city, I joined a boxing gym. It wasn't about anger. It was about rhythm. The sound of gloves hitting canvas feels like punctuation. Firm, final, cleansing. My trainer, a woman in her 50s with arms like sculpture, once said, "You hit hardest when you stop trying to prove something." She was right. I wasn't punching Liam anymore. I was punching the version of me that stayed too long, trying to understand someone who didn't deserve translation. Then, one afternoon in June, I saw him. It was at the grocery store, aisle 7, the universe's favorite sense of humor. He was thinner, paler, wearing that same gray jacket from our engagement photo. The moment he noticed me, his eyes widened. He froze. "Chloe," he said softly. "Liam." We stood there between cereal boxes and bottled water, the whole story condensed into silence. He cleared his throat. "You look good." "I am," I said. "You?" He hesitated, trying to be. There was something sincere in that answer, and for the first time, I didn't feel bitterness, just recognition of who we'd been and who we weren't anymore. He glanced down. I never deserved that ring, he said quietly. Not because of what I did, but because I didn't understand what it meant. I nodded. For what it's worth, I hope you learn. He smiled. Small, sad, human. Take care, Chloe. You too. He left first. I stood there for a while, the hum of the freezers filling the space he used to occupy. And then I smiled, just a little, because it was over, truly over. That night, I wrote something in my journal, a habit I'd picked up again since therapy. The worst part of betrayal isn't losing someone you loved. It's realizing how little they understood what love really was. The best part of recovery isn't forgiveness. It's remembering you were whole before they ever tried to break you. People ask what I learned from it all. I tell them this. If someone hides their commitment like an inconvenience, believe them. If someone treats your love like a costume, don't wait for them to change. Take it off, fold it neatly, and walk away. Because sometimes the most powerful confrontation isn't shouting, crying, or closure. It's simply living better than they expected you to. I sleep with the window open now. The city's pulse doesn't keep me up anymore. It feels like background music, proof that life keeps going, louder than heartbreak, steadier than memory. The camera sits by the window, ready for morning light. My gloves hang on the hook by the door. And every time I pass the mirror, I catch a reflection that doesn't flinch. She's not the woman who waited for truth. She's the woman who created her own. And for the first time in a long time, I'm finally home,